Ciao my friends, welcome to my kitchen. This is where I teach you how to take whole, simple ingredients and turn them into delicious meals. And today we are going to be making a Tuscan grape pie. This pie is actually very similar to a focaccia bread with grapes in it. The grapes is going to give this focaccia such a sweet and robust flavor, not to mention the zest of the orange and the walnuts. That's just going to give another depth of flavor to this amazing focaccia bread that's very traditional in the Tuscan area. Pronto? Allora andiamo a cucinare. We have our bowl that has flour in it, and now we're going to be adding some baking powder. We're also going to take an egg and we're going to separate it. The whites are going to go into our dough, and the yolk we're going to save for later. And then we need to add some liquid. You can add just water if you want, but traditionally wine, because this is from the end of the wine harvest season. So I'm using a pink Moscato that I have on hand. I wouldn't recommend a red wine, only because it will make the dough really dark. So I'm just going with the light one, either a white or a pink. And I added just about half of it, and I'm gonna now just kind of mix all of the flour and liquid together. And then if I find that my dough is still dry, then I will add more wine. I did say only add half of the wine at a time, but I think I added a little bit more than a half because my dough is really wet. So now I'm gonna actually have to add more flour. So if this happens to you, just add more flour instead of the wine. And this is just what happens when you drink before you start making a cooking video. So we will halt with the drinking right now and just focus on cooking. And I'm just going to add enough flour in here so that my dough is not super wet and it's a little bit more manageable. This is what you want your dough to look like, to come together just like a nice ball like this. And that is perfect. It's got just enough liquid, just enough flour. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut our dough in half. And we're going to put half aside for later. And then this half we're going to use right now. So now I'm going to, I've just got a half pan. If you don't have a half pan like this, you can use a cookie sheet or whatever you want is totally fine. And I've got some parchment paper. I like to grease the bottom of my pan just a little bit because it actually helps the parchment paper stay in place, so I don't feel like I'm fighting it the whole time. Now we'll put our parchment paper in here. And you can see just by that little step of greasing the bottom of your pan, the parchment paper now stays in place. So now at this point, I'm just going to take a little bit of olive oil, and I just want to grease my pan a little bit. Then I'm going to take half of my dough and just start stretching your dough out. Now, it might fill up this pan and it might not, and that's totally okay. Just get it to whatever size you can. That's why I'm saying that you don't have to use a pan like this. You could use a cookie sheet. If you want more dough, just double the dough so you get more of it. All right, so now I've pretty much stretched it out thin all the way across, and that's perfect. So now I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna get the next part of it ready. All right, so for the next step, we can just save the bowl that we use to make our dough with. No need to dirty up another bowl. I've got some grapes here, and so I'm just going to just kind of slice them, give them a rough chop. You can do it like this, or if you want, you could just take your hands and just squish them all up. That's totally fine as well. So whatever works for you to kind of chop these up into some small pieces. They don't have to be super small. Now I'm going to take my walnuts and just give them a nice little chop. And if you don't want to use walnuts, you could use pecans. Sometimes I'll use pecans as well, but I happen to have some walnuts today, so I use the walnuts. Now we're just going to zest an orange. Now we don't want to use the juice of the orange because we don't want any juice in here. Otherwise it will kind of fall apart when we actually sandwich the filling into the bread, and I'll show you that later. And finally, just add some sugar. So now we're just gonna mix up all these ingredients just to combine. Now that we have our filling mixed up, now we're going to take the bottom half of the dough and we're gonna place about 3/4 of the filling on here. And just evenly spread that. And now with the rest of our dough, we want to go ahead and place it on top and stretch the dough out so that we can cover as much of the grapes as possible. So I like to take the dough and just kind of stretch it and then press it down, and just kind of stretch it and press it down. And don't worry if you get holes or some of the grapes fall out, it's not really a big deal. It'll be fine. So just kind of stretch your dough out as best you can. And that's perfect, just like that. So now what we're going to do is I have my egg yolk and I just added like a teaspoon of water in here. I just want to make a little bit of an egg wash. Just want to brush this egg wash on this top layer. It's going to help get nice and brown, golden brown when it's in the oven. Plus, I am going to dust it with a little extra sugar. Just lightly sprinkle, just a little bit of sugar, not too much. And that's going to give a nice crystallization, a nice little crunch to the top of the crust. Now we're going to take the rest of our grapes and place them on top. And I'm just going to kind of press these down. So this is traditionally known as a Schiacciata, which actually means to squash, to press down, to flatten. So that's kind of what we're doing with this. So it's totally okay. Very traditional. At the end of grape harvest, this is a traditional dish that they make. A lot of them would cut it up and have it for dessert out in the fields while they're collecting the last harvest of the year. So now I am going to bake this in the oven at 350 degrees until it's nice and golden brown. I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out, and I will show you how to finish it to add just a little bit of extra sweetness to this. All right, this is fresh out of the oven and it cooled a little bit. You can see how beautiful this looks. It smells amazing. And if you want, you can add just a little bit of extra touch to it and just add some powdered sugar on it. Makes it just pop out even more. And now we can just go ahead and slice this. All right, we have this beautiful piece. You can see how it's just filled with those beautiful grapes and the walnuts that we've got in there. And I'm actually just gonna add a little bit more powder on here. And this is a great dessert that will be perfect for this chicken dinner. I will check you out over there. Ciao, ci vediamo dopo. This is so good.